I want to turn to another white supremacist, Christopher Cantwell, speaking to Vice on the day after the Charlottesville protests.
The fact that nobody on our side died, I'd go ahead and call that points for us. The fact that none of our people killed anybody unjustly, I think, is a plus for us. And I think that we showed our rivals that we won't be cowed.
But the car that struck a protester, that's unprovoked.
That's not true, and you know that it's not true. You've seen the video. So.
I've seen a video. I don't know much about it.
I understand that
Can you describe what the video appears to show?
Okay. So the video appears to show someone striking that vehicle when these animals attacked him again, and he saw no way to get away from them except to hit the gas. And sadly, because our rivals are a bunch of stupid animals who don't pay attention, they couldn't just get out of the way of his car, and some people got hurt, and that's unfortunate.
So you think it was justified?
I think it was more than justified. I can't believe the amount of restraint that our people showed out there. I think was astounding.
What do you think this means for the next alt-right protest?
I say it's going to be really tough to top, but we're up to the challenge.
Wait, why?
Why?
Tough to top. I mean, someone died.
I think that a lot more people are going to die before we're done here, frankly.
White supremacist Christopher Cantwell speaking to Vice the day after Heather Heyer was killed. Her funeral today in Charlottesville. Bree Newsome, your response.
I mean, again, I just continue to emphasize to people that this is not new. This is part of a long history and a pattern of white supremacist terrorism in this country. I think part of what people are struggling with right now is recognizing that it is terrorism for whatever reason. But the reality is that the greatest terrorist threat in the United States is and has always been from white nationalists and white supremacists. Heather Heyer, her death is part of a tragic and long history of white allies who were standing with black activists fighting for justice, who lost their lives, who were killed by white supremacists. Of course, one of the most famous cases was the case of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, 3 civil rights workers who traveled to Mississippi in 1964 to register black citizens there to vote. And they went missing, and their bodies were discovered several days later, and it became clear that they had been murdered by the Ku Klux Klan working in collaboration with police. So again, this whole question about, is it terror? Is it not terror? That is a question that should no longer be asked. It absolutely is terrorism by every definition. Not only are these acts of violence that are intended to cause terror, but they are also politically informed. It is people using terrorism as a tactic to push an ideology. There is absolutely no moral difference between a white supremacist plowing his car into a crowd of unarmed protesters to advance an ideology and someone who was inspired by ISIS plowing their car into a crowd on a street in Germany for the same reasons, to drive home some ideology that they believe in. There's no difference. It is terrorism. It should be labeled as such. It should be dealt with as such. It should be investigated as such. Not only should, people like Dylan Roof and the terrorist from Saturday be charged and prosecuted, but there needs to be an investigation of these networks. How far do they go? How far into the power structure do they reach? We know that one of the closest advisors to the president used to run a news platform that he described as being a platform for the alt-right. The alt-right, that term was coined by Richard Spencer, who we saw on Saturday pressing up against the police line with shields. I mean, it just reaches a certain point where, asking certain questions are ridiculous, and it's just time to deal in reality.
Bree Newsome, I want to thank you for being with us. Bree brought down the Confederate flag on the South Carolina State House. Day after the mass funeral for the 9 African-American parishioners who were murdered by the white supremacists at the Emmanuel AME Church, Dylan Roof.